Okay, Darryl, good afternoon. The tournament is just completed. Australian Masters. With us, six times Australian champion and 13 times Victorian champion, the most decorated player in Australia, Darryl Johansen. What can you tell us, Darryl, about the tournament?
I would have thought Ian would have been more decorated than me, but that's a contentious point. What can I say about the tournament from my point of view, or from a broad point of view? Or?
No, from your point of view, and after we'll discuss about from broader point of view. And
well, it's obviously not a good result for me. That's par for the course. I haven't played a game in anger since April, so I knew I was going to be a little bit rusty. And it was good towards the end. I started to feel like I was starting to see things, but I lost complete interest when I didn't win the point inning against Luke Lee.
Yes,
I didn't go into the point inning.
Yes, it's unlikely your performance, because a position like that you would probably win 11 out of 10 games.
And you can say, oh yeah, players are rusty and so on, but I wasn't happy with the way I was playing. But that is what it is.
But I believe the last time you played in Victoria nearly 2 years ago. Is it Can you remember when the last time played in Victoria in a serious tournament like?
Melbourne Club Championship. Possibly. I played a state championship in 2011, I think.
Yeah, it was about 2.5 years ago.
No, hang on. Geelong Australian Championships.
Ah, that's right. Yes, yeah. Well, what I'm saying,
So
I was thinking.
Start of 2012.
That's exactly right. When you won, your sixth title.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. But we hope that this tournament, you're just warming up for big things like Australian Championship. In next 2 weeks. Is it what you're?
Well, that was the principal. Other intention was whether I had a fantastic result here or not, which was always going to be a little unlikely from my point of view, was that I'd get some sort of momentum to play in the championships. Trying out different openings and so on in particular here was worthwhile.
Yeah, and it's actually very well documented. It's the first GM Norm event on Victorian soil. Hopefully not the last one. It's on the beginning. And I think Ian told us a couple of days ago what we heard about. It's only fifth GM Norm event in Australian history. He mentioned 1979 Brisbane.
There was Brisbane. There was one in Sydney afterwards, I believe.
Yes.
And then of course there's the Adstein Liddham's Australian Open, the ones in 1987 and 1990.
Yeah. No, we're talking about round robin GM. That's right.
There was another one in Sydney too. Sometime.
Yeah. In 1991 it was 2 GM events in Sydney. 1971 one more in Sydney, and this is 3 in Sydney, 1 in Brisbane, first time in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it'll be continue.
Long overdue.
That's exactly right. And what do you reckon? Is it a good setup, like 10 players round robin for a GM Norm event, or perhaps maybe you think maybe you should get 12 players? Or
I think back in the days of the Soviet Union, I think 10 players is probably a decent minimum. You don't want to have do you want to have a 20-round Oporochny tournament or something like this?
Yes, it's very, very difficult. Now, in your days, like Rogers mentioned, when you make GM norms. You've done it, at Chess Olympiad, which is much, much harder, and you didn't have too many opportunities to play in. How many tournaments with GM norm like you played in your chess career, roughly?
Well, I made 2 Olympiad norms, and as you said, the Olympiad norms are the easiest to make because you can kind of pick and choose your opponents a little bit. I made one in the Australian Open, that was the one in 1990-91, and as to GM norm events, well, probably not that many. Maybe I've played in a dozen. Ian Rogers would have played a lot more because he was sort of playing more of those sort of East European tournaments. He got all the invitations to these round robins and so on.
Yeah, as you know, this tournament is was partly sponsored by the Australian Chess Federation, and entry fee by the IMs and things like that. What do you think? Is it like a reasonable setup or?
Well, it is what it is because as you said, you've got budget constraints. When I played the Watullo Memorial in Jakarta in 2000 and 2002, 2001, 2000, I can't remember exactly which year. And they had a massive sponsor. The guy was donating hotel rooms to all the foreigners. They had some airfare sponsored. They had lots of money from some other. So a seemingly poor country like Indonesia often has a lot of money for chess-wise sponsorships. Whereas here, as you said, the sponsorship is quite limited to one hotel room and some other bits and pieces. And,
that's right.
And otherwise, you have to slug the players who are playing for norms big entry fees.
Yeah,
it's a bit sad.
Yeah, it's true. But you see, like in the same case, if players would like to play, like in first Saturday tournament in Budapest, we're paying even more entry fees, and we're fighting for no prize money at all, only certificates.
It's the same setup, but yeah, that's more of a...
Yes. Now, what are your plans for next year, chess-wise? You're going to play in some tournaments. Obviously, Australian Championship is coming up.
I'll offer some breaking news. It shouldn't be half obvious that I'm not playing much chess at all these days, and there's a good reason for that. Is I'm simply not getting the same passion out of playing that I used to get. I like to play every now and then, and I like to play a tournament like this, broadly speaking, where there's one round a day or something I can really get my teeth into. But I've really stopped playing things like weekend tournaments and the like, and it's not because I don't want to give something back to the Australian chess scene, to use that horrible cliche. I just don't enjoy playing as much.
Yes, I understand. Perhaps maybe, we would like to see you playing more like a rapid event, like one-day event or blitz. What do you think? Because we're looking at, running a few more.
You talked about the lawn, the lawn rapid and things like this. Look, I can play those.
Another, breaking news for you, Darryl. I mean, it's not a breaking news, but it probably will be news soon. But we'll be running the same, like in February, like Victorian teams rapid play championship. Which will be sponsored by Hungarian community. Perhaps you would like to...
the thing that was on this last year.
Well, that's right, yes. Perhaps, tournaments like maybe Bilanoko or whatever, I think won't be, I'm in the same boat like you, but different categories.
The awful truth is I do a lot of coaching. Coaching, as you know, these days, and especially on Sundays, oddly enough, with Box Hill. I have private students on Sundays as well, so when I start to play events like that, I have to figure that I'm losing probably a few $100 in income if I don't work.
Yeah.
Whilst, of course, it is nice to play chess tournaments, so they often don't play
of course.
that way.
Now, what do you think about performance of, players? Let's talk about the IM event. It's nearly finished. It's the last round as we speak. But as you know, this morning, Carl Tedesco, he won his game and he made international master norm, 7 out of 9. He's lowest rated player. What can you tell about his performance?
It's obviously a good result. There wasn't a mug tournament. I know people like Eddie Levi and that aren't playing very well these days, but you've still got to beat the players you get. This is a great result. And look at this, he only dropped one game, he lost one game, so therefore he's done it with 6 wins. So it's fairly good. Clear sailing, yeah.
Now, what about the GM event? Any surprises from you?
I think we all knew that Anton's getting better by the day. It's funny the way he's been sort of coached by Vlad principally. I know he's coached by someone else now too, but basically he was coached from the idea of avoid losing games. And what's happened with Anton now is he's actually quite hard to beat. So even though he may not play opening theory particularly well, like against me, he lost his way in terms of theory by about move 15 and just played a move that's only been played once on my database, but yet he managed to keep the position under control and in the end he actually won.
Yeah.
So he's very hard to beat, and he takes opportunities against players, and that's actually a really tough style to play against because it means he's playing tournaments like this. He might have 5 draws and 2 wins, or 3 wins or something, and no losses in the end.
Fantastic.
After 9 rounds, I can figure it all out.
What about Bobby Cenk? What do you think about Bobby Cenk? And
he's a good player, but he still has sort of weaknesses in him. Just like all of us, he has weaknesses in his not so much his repertoire. His repertoire is quite good.
What do you think, Darryl? I'll put you on the spotlight like I've done with Ian.
Yeah.
Who do you think will be the next Australian Grandmaster? Or no, not one person. A couple of people who what do you think will make it hopefully soon? Okay,
there's about 4 or 5 people that could. But you've got the reality check thing that once you get to the age of a Bobby Cheng or a James Morris, that they've often got competing interests. They're getting to the age where they have to think about careers and whether they want to keep pursuing chess with the same intensity. Especially the Asian parents, the kid either does chess or they have to do something else. So it gets hard because they don't have the same amount of sort of free time. You would think actually someone like Bobby would be first in line, but I don't think so. Looking at the players around, I'd go with an Anton Smirnov even as being a potential GM norm person, but who else is there?
Probably Moulton Lai, maybe Max Illingworth, James Morris.
You'd want to see someone that's willing to travel because unfortunately it's still the case that you cannot make GM norms sitting in Australia, with the odd exception of course. You've got to be willing to spend time in Europe. You see Max Illingworth you'd think would make it, but I don't think he's got the... So he'd have to start travelling in Europe on his own, and he can't do that. He can't even travel here on his own, so it's going to be hard work. I'm not saying he couldn't do it, but it would be hard.
Okay. Now you and Ian, members of the golden generations who make chess as a professional, you travel around the world and you played in many tournaments, so many countries, we went into some obscure places, like I remember in 1996, you tried to cross border, with Armenia and Turkey, if my memory serves me right.
Yeah,
yes.
bastards, they wouldn't let me do it.
Yeah, they sent you to Tbilisi, but you enjoyed it, very much, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it was nice to go via Georgia.
Yes. What advice can you give to young players if you would like to succeed in chess? Like
Don't know how the travel thing comes into that.
No, I mean, travel is good fun, because nobody can take experiences of traveling from you.
True. That's all true, yes.
What do you think? What's required now in today's, computer chess world?
As a conversation I was having with the lads in here before, as when you came in, the methods one would have used back in the late 70s, early 80s to become a decent player are completely different to the methods that one would use today, because you didn't have computers back then. It was all about preparing your own game and working on chess as best you can. There was far less coaching, formal coaching and so on. Whereas nowadays you can get coaching of all sorts on the internet or just privately. And you can essentially just do most of the stuff with your laptop.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Ian travelling to tournaments like in the late 80s, and he'd have scrapbooks full of games which he'd cut out and pasted in from newspapers and whatnot. Whereas, now you can just take a tablet computer or something.
Yeah, I remember the story in Riga with late Alexander Wojtkiewicz. We took actually, it took us, weeks to make photos of 10,000, little, games from, like database, paper database of Latvian, chess club. But today's day, it's much easier to learn openings. But is it easier to become a good player today or maybe 30 years ago? What do you think?
Well, I think the proof of the eating is in the pudding. There are so many good players now. It's not just the world's population's expanded, the world's chess population's expanded. When we played in Olympiads in the 80s, typically Australia would play in the first round of the Olympiad, some mud country like, Zaire or Fiji, or not that Fiji's that bad. But there'd be sort of a country we'd normally beat 4-0 or maybe 3.5-half, and that would be the same for other countries. Nowadays, when you're playing the Olympiads, the weak countries are all quite good. They don't play as badly as they used to, because everyone's learning from computers and the like. And so the chess strength of the world has grown dramatically, if you like.
Yeah, basically, my theory, goes saying that, what a few people knew in Aleka and Capablanca era, today millions know, and you're just one click away from computer and you can acquire a lot of knowledge if you wish.
If I go to an Olympiad and I play some guy in the first round, from what was the last Olympiad I played? I played Nigeria, won a game. I remember that. I was playing some guy called, I think it was Taylor or something like this, and he looked at all my games on the database. Said, "Hey man, I saw you played all these games, and it's more of an American accent than, but yeah, he prepared for me really hard, and I was thinking, what can I do? I played something I normally played, and he knew how to play it.
How many Olympiads you played altogether?
Well, it's how many I've missed. Since 1980, my first one was Malta. I didn't want to go to Candyman Siskin, that's all been well documented, and I didn't go to...
No, you didn't like to go to Elista.
No, sorry.
Cantimansisky went.
Complete mistake.
And you enjoyed it, yes.
But both of them have a Soviet connection, if you like. So yeah, it was a Elista I didn't want to go to, and I didn't play in the last one in Turkey.
Yeah. All right, Darryl. Thank you very much for interview, and good luck. And we hope to see you more, at the Victorian tournaments and generally in Australia.
Great, thanks, Leonard. Thanks to your viewers.